Welcome everyone. I'm Vani Rose Mill from BTLED-1B. I hope you have a wonderful day today. Are you excited for a year in fun and learning? My name is Vani Rose Mill, Colorado. Call me Teacher Vani or Teacher V for short. Today we will talk about the development of learner and various stages. The stages of prenatal development has divided into three periods. The first one is germinal period. Germinal period, the conception of 2 weeks. After fertilization, the nucleus of the sperm and the ovum fuse and the chromatin material from each of the nuclei join to make a new individual. This cell then passes down the fallopian tube, dividing into 2, 4, 8 and more cells. On entering the cavity of the uterus, the cell mass is too big to allow the innermost cells to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. During this period, small tendrils begin to project from the other wall of the zygote and burrow into the wall of uterus.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome all to Easy Human Anatomy channel. In this video, I discuss germinal period. It extends from first and second week of development. Sperm have to cross 3 barriers. At first, the corona radiata, then zona pellucida, then oocyte cell membrane. So this is the fertilization day 1. This is zygote, this is male and female pronucleus, and this is polar body. 2 still stays. It's seen after the 30 hours after fertilization. Then cleavage division. After fertilization, zygote begin to divide mitotically, and each division cell size became reduced. This is 4 cell stays after 40 hours after fertilization. This is morula. It's formed within 3 to 4 days after fertilization. This is blastocyst. It formed 7 days after fertilization. This is embryoblast or inner cell mass. This is outer cell mass or trophoblast, and this is blastocyst cavity. So in this picture, show the first week of development. This is, in this picture, this is show ovulation, fertilization, zygote formation, 2 cell stays, 16 cell stays, morula, blastocyst, and within 6 days, the implantation is start. This is 9 days after fertilization. You see the embryoblast is converted into epiblast and hypoblast. The trophoblast is converted into 2 layers, cytotrophoblast and syncytotrophoblast. 12 days after fertilizations, here the extra embryonic mesoderm is start to form. This is splanchnopleurotic layer, this is somatopleurotic layer, and chorionic cavity is start to form. This is amniotic cavity, this is primitive yolk sac cavity. So it is 13 days after fertilizations. Here the amniotic cavity, secondary yolk sac cavity, amniotic cavity, and this is the splanchnopleurotic layer of extraembryonic mesoderm. This is somatopleurotic layer of extraembryonic mesoderm. This is cytotrophoblast. This is syncytotrophoblast. So this is the chorion. Chorion is formed by the 3 structures: somatopleurotic layer of extraembryonic mesoderm, cytotrophoblast, and syncytotrophoblast. This projected portions of from chorion is known as the chorionic villi. So in the second week, primary and secondary chorionic villi is formed. So the main event of the first week: fertilization, zygote formation, initiation of cleavage, formation of morula, morula converted into blastocyst, and blastocyst implantation. The main event occurred in the second week of the development. It's also known as the week of 2 because embryoblast is converted into 2-layer, epiblast and hypoblast. Trophoblast differentiated into 2-layer, cytotrophoblast, syncytotrophoblast, extraembryonic mesoderm split into 2-layer, somatoporic mesoderm and splanchoporic mesoderm. And primary and secondary chorionic villi of placenta is formed, and other features, uteroplacenta circulation begin, and chorionic cavity is formed. So this is all.
The second stages of prenatal development is called embryonic period. Embryonic period, 3 to 8 weeks. About 8 or 9 days after fertilization, the fertilized ovum settles on the surface of the uterus. Some of the cells on the surface of the fertilized ovum starts eroding into the mother tissues, and the egg slowly settles into the mother's uterine lining. The placenta begins to develop. All the substances that embryo receives from the mother and all the waste matters must pass through the placental barrier so the fetus lies defines on it. The multifold branching of the placenta helps increase oxygen and food exchange. The embryo is joined to the placenta by at least of blood vessels forming the umbilical cord. Blood is carried from the fetus along one of 2 arteries to the placenta where it is reoxygenated and waste products are removed. During this period, a sac-like structure forms around the embryo and encloses it totally. This is known as amniotic sac, which contains amniotic fluid that allows the fetus to float, protecting it from mechanical shocks and changes in temperature and sound. Development during this short period is very rapid and crucial because now all the major organs, tissues, and systems of the body are being formed. Limbs develop very early but are quite funny at first. The arm is more advanced than the leg in develop, but since they are needed in the uterus, their full development is slow. The digestive system develops from a single tube, which grows very rapidly. Some parts of the tube increase in size to form the stomach and the large intestine. The heart is developed from a pair of blood vessels that fuse together and then grow in width and length. Before birth, the fetus receives oxygen from the mother's blood passed through the placenta. Lungs develops from pouches, which have split off, and the gut tube that make their own separate tubal system in front of the gut. The kidneys start to excrete urine, and the circulatory system also is functional. The embryo at this stage is around 1.5 inches long.
During the 3rd week after fertilization, the 3 primary germ layers are formed, which provide cells for organ formation in the following months. These germ cell layers are formed by a process known as gastrulation, which involves rearranging epiblast cells. As cells from the epiblast migrate, a faint groove, called the primitive streak, forms on the surface of the embryonic disc. With the formation of the primitive streak, it is possible to recognize the head and tail ends of the embryo. Some epiblast cells migrate, differentiate, and then replace the hypoblast to form the endoderm germ layer. Other epiblast cells migrate and differentiate to form a new layer between the epiblast and hypoblast, identified as the mesoderm germ layer. The remaining epiblast cells become the ectoderm germ layer. The result of gastrulation is the formation of the trilaminar embryonic disc, consisting of the 3 germ layers. The ectoderm gives rise to all nervous tissue and the epithelium of the skin. The mesoderm gives rise to blood, muscle, bone, and connective tissue. The endoderm forms into the epithelium of the gastrointestinal tract, the respiratory system, and many organs. Further differentiation of mesodermal cells begins the formation of the notochord. The notochord is important in starting or inducing the specialization of other cells, including those directly above them, called the neural plate. Epiblastic cells in the neural plate are induced to begin to mound up and fold into a groove. The neural groove continues to fold. Adjacent notochord mesodermal cells are induced to form somites. Somites are the eventual source of cells that form muscle tissue, skeletal, and other connective tissue. The neural groove completely folds inward to form the hollow neural tube. The neural tube arises and its cells eventually develop to form the brain, spinal cord, and other parts of the nervous system. Also during the third week, mesodermal cells from the primitive streak rearrange to form blood vessels in the embryo, and a primitive heart tube is formed. Continued development of the chorion results in the formation of the chorionic villi, projecting into the endometrium to form an exchange area called the intervillous space. The maternal blood vessels and fetal blood vessels remain separate, so maternal and fetal blood do not normally mix. However, oxygen, antibodies, nutrients, and waste products are all exchanged via the intervillous spaces.
And the last stages of prenatal development is called fetal period. Fetal period. 9 weeks stillbirth. After the first 8 or 9 weeks of intrauterine life, the embryo is complete and the healthy fetus has all its essential organs. During this stage, development of the various body systems take place. The rate of growth is very rapid, particularly in the middle months of pregnancy. Different parts of the body grow at different rates. The head ends receive the most oxygenated blood so that the brain can grow quickly. This makes the developing embryo look big, hidden in relation to the rest of its body. The limbs of the fetus look comparatively puny in relation to the body as they are used occasionally. Once the baby starts to use them, months after birth, the limbs grow stronger and larger.
The embryonic stage of development begins at day 15 after conception and continues through week 8. Basic structures of all major body organs and the main external features are completed during this time period, including internal organs. By week 3, the brain, spinal cord, and heart begin to develop, along with the gastrointestinal tract. Here, the neural tube forms, which later becomes the spinal cord. Also, leg and arm buds begin to appear and grow out from the small body. In week 4, the brain begins to differentiate and the limb buds grow and develop more. In week 5, the heart now begins to beat a regular rhythm. Beginning structures of the eyes and ears are noticeable. Some cranial nerves are now visible and muscles connect to nerves. In week 6, the formation of the lungs begins and fetal circulation is established. The liver begins producing red blood cells and the brain develops further. Here, the primitive skeleton forms and the central nervous system is now detectable with brain waves. In week 7, we see a straightening of the trunk. Nipples and hair follicles form, along with elbows and toes. Arms and legs begin to move more frequently, and the diaphragm is formed. The mouth and lips become visible along with early tooth buds. In week 8, there is a rotation of the intestines, and facial features continue to develop. The heart development is now complete, and the embryo begins to resemble a human being. In weeks 9 through 12, sexual differentiation continues. Buds for all 20 temporary teeth are now laid down, and the digestive system shows activity. In this stage, the head makes up nearly half the size of the fetus. The face and neck are well formed, and the urogenital tract completes its development. Red blood cells are produced in the liver and urine begins to be produced and excreted. The fetal gender can be determined by week 12 using an ultrasound, which will also reveal limbs that are long and thin and digits that are well formed. In weeks 13 through 16, a fine hair called lanugo develops on the head. The fetal skin is almost transparent as bones become harder. The fetus makes active movements and sucking motions are made with the mouth. The fetus swallows amniotic fluid, and external genitalia are recognizable at this stage. Fingernails and toenails are also present as the fetus's weight quadruples. It is usually during this phase that fetal movement, also known as quickening, is detected by the mother. Weeks 17 through 20 show a rapid brain growth with fetal heart tones that can be heard with a stethoscope. The kidneys will continue to secrete urine into the amniotic fluid. The vernix caseosa, which is a white greasy film, now covers the fetus. The eyebrows and head hair may appear, and brown fat is deposited to help maintain the fetus's temperature. Muscles are well developed, and nails are present on both fingers and toes. During weeks 21 through 24, eyebrows and eyelashes are well formed. The fetus has a hand grasp and startle reflex. Alveoli begin forming in the lungs and skin remains translucent and red. The eyelids still remain sealed and the lungs begin to produce surfactant. During weeks 25 through 28, the fetus reaches a length of about 15 inches. There is a rapid development of the brain and eyelids are able to open and close. The nervous system is now able to control some of the functions of the fetus. Fingerprints are also set. Subcutaneous fat is now visible under the skin. Blood formation shifts from the spleen to bone marrow, and the fetus usually assumes a head-down position. In weeks 29 to 32, there is a rapid increase in the amount of body fat. There is an increased central nervous system control over body functions, and rhythmic breathing is now established. However, the lungs are not fully mature. Pupillary light reflex is now present, and the fetus stores iron, calcium, and phosphorus. During weeks 33 through 38, the testes are in the scrotum of the male fetus. Lanugo begins to disappear. The fetus has a good strong hand grasp reflex and increases in body fat. Earlobes are formed and firm. Fingernails reach the end of the fingertips, and small breast buds are present on both sexes. The mother supplies the fetus with antibodies against disease. The fetus is considered full term at 38 weeks, when the fetus fills all the available space in the uterus.